Hello and welcome to Reason News. EFF leader Julius Malema has responded strongly to President Donald Trump's recent comments on South Africa, emphasizing that the country will not be intimidated by US threats. President Trump recently criticized South Africa's land expropriation policies, suggesting they could lead to violence against certain groups. He threatened to cut US aid and impose sanctions unless South Africa addresses these concerns. In response, Julius Malema dismissed Trump's criticism as a form of imperialism, emphasizing that South Africa will not be bullied by external forces. Malema stated that the majority of South Africans love whites and would not harm them, highlighting the misinterpretation of South Africa's policies by Trump.
When Donald Trump declares that, I open quote, bad things are happening in South Africa without evidence, we must not assume that the USA is misinformed. Instead, we must question the real intention behind such statement. After Trump's remarks, the US froze foreign aid globally under the pretext of assessing alignment with the policy outlook. For South Africa, this meant PEPFAR funding of HIV/AIDS response was under threat. On 26 February 2025, the freeze became permanent, terminating funding indefinitely. The US aggression towards South Africa is nothing more than Israel's revenge for our moral stance in support of Palestine. Meanwhile, some of us have been labeled international criminals, a designation used before the West assassinates those who opposed its agenda. Before invading the nations, the US always fabricates human rights violations to justify intervention. Today, same tactics are being used against South Africa. The growing calls by right-wing groups for foreign funding to establish independent states and to be armed by foreign interests must be recognized as part of a broader plan. This is the early stage of economic isolation, leading ultimately to military intervention. Next, AGOA will be terminated, escalating tensions between USA and South Africa. Our government must dismiss opportunistic African and racist groups exploiting US imperialism to fund their racist fantasies of an independent state. That will never happen. We will expropriate land without compensation, whether they like it or not. If they object, they can seek refuge in America. Deputy Speaker, Trump and the USA are not demonstrating strength. The USA is merely displaying an advanced stage of capitalism, which is imperialism. Trump engages in transactional and manipulative relationships with the world like it is his backyard. The hostility towards South Africa does not come from fraudulent boers spreading disinformation, but from America's imperialist agenda. The USA, home of the world's most sophisticated intelligence agencies, agencies that fabricate evidence to justify the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, and orchestrated the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi, Patrice Lumumba, Martin Luther King Jr., and Malcolm X, cannot now claim to be victims of disinformation from a minor racist group based in Orania. The USA has openly embraced the golden age of imperialism, extending its power through threats and the prevention and termination of foreign aid. In response, our government foolishly seeks to explain our policies to a maniacal president, as if the USA were a victim of misinformation. The USA knows exactly what it's doing and why it is doing it.
This exchange reflects broader tensions between South Africa and the US over issues like land reform and international relations. Malema's stance is part of a broader narrative of African nations asserting their sovereignty and resisting external interference. Now, South Africa's Expropriation Act aims to address historical injustices in land ownership. However, it has sparked controversy and international scrutiny. Malema and other leaders advocate for strengthening ties with nations like China and Russia, which they perceive as more supportive of African interests. The incident highlights the challenges of navigating global politics while maintaining national sovereignty. South Africa is seeking to deepen economic ties with BRICS nations as a counterbalance to Western influence. The international community is watching these developments closely. While some view Trump's actions as a form of protectionism, others see them as an attempt to exert influence over African nations. The implications of this standoff are significant. It could lead to a re-evaluation of US-South Africa relations and potentially affect trade agreements like AGOA. South Africa's decision to strengthen ties with other global partners reflects a broader trend of African nations seeking more diverse and equitable international relationships. The international community, like I mentioned before, is keeping a close eye on the evolving situation between the US and South Africa, recognizing the potential for significant global ramifications. While some observers interpret Trump's actions rather as a form of economic protectionism aimed at safeguarding American industries, others perceive them as a strategic maneuver to exert political and economic leverage over African nations. This ongoing diplomatic standoff carries substantial implications, potentially leading to a fundamental reassessment of the relationship between the United States and South Africa. As this situation unfolds, it will be crucial to monitor how these developments impact South Africa's economic and diplomatic strategies. What do you think about Malema's response to Trump? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth analysis. Until next time, stay informed, updated, and curious.